The lights of the studio flared to life. The set was sleek, modern, humming with the anticipation of what was clearly not going to be a typical broadcast. A new special was airing, Crossfire America, a bold attempt by producers to capture raw, unfiltered political tension in real time. Tonight's guests: Karoline Leavitt and Hunter Biden. Two names that guaranteed sparks, for very different reasons. Karoline sat poised on the left side of the circular glass table, her jaw firm, her expression unreadable. Dressed in a sharp navy jacket with her signature silver pendant necklace, she radiated focus. Across from her, Hunter Biden leaned back in his chair, half smiling, wearing a charcoal blazer and a look that hovered between bored and amused. The moderator, clearly sensing the electricity in the air, opened carefully. Tonight, we bring two very different voices face to face, Karoline Leavitt, rising conservative firebrand, and Hunter Biden, attorney, author, and son of the president. Let's begin. Karoline wasted no time. You know what bothers Americans the most, she said, voice calm but cutting. It's not that you've had problems, Hunter. It's that you've never had to face consequences for them, because of your last name. Hunter raised an eyebrow, smirking. Is this the part where you pretend to care about my life, or just use it for cheap applause? Karoline leaned forward slightly, her gaze locked in. No. This is the part where I remind the American people that while they were struggling through addiction, losing jobs, trying to rebuild their lives, you were smoking crack in Malibu and landing board seats in foreign countries. The crowd, half live, half tuned in via satellite, buzzed audibly. A few gasps. A few cheers. Hunter's smile faded for a split second. I've admitted my mistakes, Hunter replied. At least I'm honest about them. What have you ever risked? Karoline's voice dropped a level, sharp as steel. My name wasn't handed to me. My seat, my voice, my platform, I earned them by fighting for Americans who are sick of watching privilege get a pass. She didn't blink. The camera cut to Hunter's tightened jaw. The moderator tried to steer it back, but it was clear, the gloves were already off. The studio air turned colder. Hunter leaned forward now, his voice lower but laced with irritation. You think you're some kind of hero because you climbed fast in a broken system? You're just another megaphone for outrage. Karoline didn't flinch. No, I'm a mirror, she said flatly. And what people see when they look at you is a system that shields the powerful, even when they're reckless. Hunter chuckled dryly. Spare me. Your side built that system too. You think people don't notice the hypocrisy? Trump's kids weren't exactly working class either. Karoline raised her eyebrow. Except they didn't funnel millions through shell companies while your father was vice president. They didn't get away with a laptop full of evidence and still show up on late-night TV acting like victims. The moderator blinked, clearly caught off guard. Let's keep the conversation respectful. But neither guest was backing down. Hunter straightened up, finally serious. You want to throw dirt? Fine. But don't pretend like you're better because you shout louder. I've been through hell, and I came out the other side. You just came in with a fresh coat of paint. Karoline's lips curled into a faint, deadly smile. Hell is what everyday Americans go through when their sons die from fentanyl smuggled across a border your father refuses to secure, while you get to write books and go on The View. That hit like a hammer. The audience went silent for a full second. Even the moderator looked frozen. Hunter's jaw twitched. Karoline leaned in. You want to talk pain? Try sitting with a mom whose kid died in a Walmart bathroom from fentanyl, then explaining to her why the president's son made millions off Chinese oil companies while she's working double shifts. Hunter opened his mouth, then shut it again. The camera panned out. Tension clung to every inch of the studio. Social media was already exploding. Karoline goes nuclear on Hunter was trending within minutes. The moderator cleared his throat. Okay, we'll take a short break. But even the commercials wouldn't wash away what just happened. They came back from break to a studio that felt like it had changed. No one was laughing. No one was smiling. Even the crew behind the cameras moved more carefully, like they were walking through a minefield. Karoline sat forward, hands clasped, eyes focused like a surgeon before the next incision. Hunter, noticeably more tense, rolled his shoulders and stared off to the side. The moderator hesitated before speaking. Let's shift the focus now to influence, specifically, foreign ties. Hunter, critics have raised concerns about your dealings in Ukraine and China. Would you like to respond? Hunter exhaled sharply, nodding. Yeah. I took work abroad. It wasn't illegal. Was it messy? Sure. But everything I did was out in the open. No one's proven wrongdoing. Karoline cut in. No one's prosecuted it. That's different. Hunter turned to her. You act like every deal I made was some grand conspiracy. It was business. My father wasn't involved. Karoline cocked her head, almost amused. Right. You just happened to sit on the board of Burisma while your father was handling Ukrainian diplomacy. Total coincidence. Got it. Hunter's voice tightened. What do you even know about diplomacy? Or war? Or anything outside of your carefully packaged media clips? Karoline didn't blink. I know what leadership looks like. And I know corruption when I see it dressed in a suit and shielded by media spin. The audience stirred. Karoline continued, unrelenting, you didn't just take business deals. You used your name, your proximity to power, to gain access that no average American would ever dream of. And now you sit here acting like a victim. The real victims are the ones who never had a famous father to bail them out. Hunter looked away, jaw clenched, lips pressed in a hard line. The moderator tried to interject, but Karoline wasn't finished. You had the American dream handed to you on a silver platter, she said. I had to claw my way into every room I've entered. And I'm not the only one. Millions of young people out there are working 3 jobs, paying off student debt, and watching people like you lecture them from mansions. The audience broke into applause. For the first time, Hunter didn't respond. Because how could he? Hunter finally leaned forward, elbows on the table, his tone darker. You talk a big game, Karoline. But you're just here for viral clips and clout. You don't care about truth, just attention. Karoline didn't blink. If I wanted attention, I'd write a memoir about my addictions and sell it to Netflix. But I'm not here to sell my past. I'm here to stop people like you from rewriting theirs. A sharp murmur cut through the audience. Hunter smirked, but there was no warmth in it. Wow. You really think you're untouchable, huh? I think I'm clean, Karoline said bluntly. And that still matters to Americans. Hunter leaned back, exhaling through his nose. You keep preaching about morality like it's a campaign slogan. But life's not black and white. Maybe if you lived more of it, you'd know that. Karoline paused, then answered, no, life isn't black and white. But accountability is. The moderator tried to lighten the moment. Okay, let's. But Karoline was already moving forward again. You want to call this political theater? She asked. That's rich, coming from a man whose entire public existence is a cleanup act. Every scandal you've had, from the laptop to the taxes, ends the same way, denied, buried, or ignored. Not everyone gets that luxury. Hunter interrupted, his voice rising. My life has been torn apart by the media, thank you very much. Karoline nodded. Yes. But not your career. Not your access. Not your millions. Average Americans don't get to fail upward. You did. He looked away, visibly irritated. His composure cracked. You think you're so righteous, Karoline. Just another face on cable news looking for the next headline. No, she said calmly. I'm a reminder that the next generation isn't blind to yours anymore. A long silence followed. The moderator sat frozen. The crew didn't move. And somewhere in the control room, a producer whispered, "We just went viral." The temperature in the room had shifted from tense to electric. Twitter was already ablaze. Clips of Karoline's line, "You don't get to fail upward," were spreading like wildfire. Hunter adjusted his mic, face tight, voice slower now. "You keep throwing darts, Karoline, but I wonder. Do you actually care about helping people, or just hurting political enemies?" Karoline turned to him, voice low. "Helping people means exposing the double standards that cripple this country. And right now, you're the poster child of that system." Hunter scoffed. "Easy to say from a clean podium. Try living it." She didn't blink. "People are living it. Every day. Families destroyed by drugs while you got paid $50,000 a month sitting on foreign boards. Soldiers dying while you're shaking hands with Chinese energy execs. You're not living in the real world. You're profiting from the one your family controls." The crowd gasped again, half in shock, half in admiration. Hunter looked like he might explode. But Karoline wasn't done. She turned toward the camera. "There are young men sitting in jail cells tonight for one mistake, one pill, one bad choice. Meanwhile, you brag about recovery and get magazine covers. Tell me, where's the justice in that?" Hunter snapped. "I never asked for special treatment." Karoline looked him dead in the eye. "You never had to." The moderator tried to intervene. "Let's bring it back to," but even he knew there was no going back. Hunter leaned in now, the smooth charm gone. "You're not a leader. You're a loudmouth." Karoline smiled, just slightly. "And yet here we are, you on defense, me calling out the hypocrisy America's been choking on for years." Hunter opened his mouth to respond, but the audience was already reacting. Some were clapping. Some booing. Everyone was leaning forward. This wasn't just a TV moment anymore, it was a reckoning. Hunter looked like he was searching for a new tactic, the charm wasn't working, and defensiveness had only made it worse. He sat back, trying to appear calm, but his fingers tapped anxiously on the desk. He turned to Karoline. "You think you represent some moral high ground? You work for people who backed January 6th. Who tried to overturn democracy." Karoline didn't blink. "And you think you represent democracy? The guy who hid emails, dodged taxes, and lied to federal investigators while your father sits in the White House?" The room tensed. Even the moderator looked toward the control booth, unsure whether to cut the feed. Karoline pressed on, her tone sharper but still measured. "Don't lecture me about democracy, Hunter. You're not its guardian. You're its cautionary tale." He exhaled, clearly rattled. "You don't know anything about my life." Karoline's reply was instant. "I know enough. Enough to know that people like you get second, third, fourth chances, while thousands of Americans rot in prison for a fraction of your crimes." She looked back toward the crowd. "This isn't personal. This is national. And Americans are tired of the cover-ups, tired of watching elites play by different rules. I'm just saying what they can't." The audience erupted into applause. Hunter finally stood, trying to regain control. "You're not a journalist. You're not a leader. You're a performer with a script." Karoline stayed seated. "I don't need a script. I have facts. I have receipts. And I have the courage to say what no one else on this stage will." Hunter pointed at her, voice raised. "You're reckless." Karoline tilted her head. "No. I'm relentless. There's a difference." Silence. The moderator finally interjected. "We'll take one more break." But everyone knew, when they returned, the gloves would be all the way off. When the cameras came back on, the studio no longer felt like a political forum, it felt like a courtroom. The audience sat still. Every breath was measured. The tension now had weight. The moderator's voice was cautious. "Let's pivot to integrity in public service. Hunter, What would you say to critics who believe your name gave you access that undermined public trust? Hunter sat with his arms crossed. I've acknowledged mistakes. But I've also worked to rebuild my life. I didn't ask to be in the spotlight. I'm just trying to move forward. Karoline jumped in. Moving forward doesn't erase the damage. And Americans aren't asking for apologies, they're demanding accountability. Hunter turned sharply. Easy for you to preach from a pedestal. Try living through addiction, loss, and relentless attacks. Karoline didn't flinch. Millions of Americans are living through it. And they don't have book deals, private jets, or Secret Service details. They survive, quietly, painfully, while you get interviews. The audience murmured in agreement. She leaned forward now, her voice colder. You say you didn't ask for this spotlight. Then why did you monetize it? Why did you parade your trauma for profit while families you hurt got silence in return? Hunter's jaw tightened. You don't know what I've endured. Karoline stared back. And you don't know what America's endured because of people who look just like you, powerful, protected, and perpetually forgiven. The moderator, clearly overwhelmed, attempted to steer the conversation. Maybe we can focus on where we go from here. But Hunter stood again, voice rising. You're not interested in healing. You want blood. Karoline stood, too, cool and unshaken. No. I want justice. And if truth feels like an attack, maybe you should look at what you're defending. That line, sharp, unapologetic, landed like a gavel. The studio sat stunned. No one dared speak. Even Hunter didn't. Because deep down, he knew, the tide wasn't just turning. It had turned. The air was stiff now, not with tension, but realization. A line had been crossed, and there was no going back. Even Hunter seemed to feel it. He no longer spoke with confidence. His voice, when he finally broke the silence, was quieter. You know what the saddest part is, he said, almost to himself. I came here thinking maybe I could show people I've changed. That I could move past the mistakes. Karoline didn't interrupt this time. She let him speak. I know I've messed up, Hunter continued. But I'm not some villain. I'm a man who's been through hell. And maybe I didn't earn everything I got. But I never asked to be a political weapon either. For a moment, the audience was still. Then Karoline spoke, her voice slower, deliberate. Maybe you didn't ask to be a symbol. But that's what happens when you live in privilege and refuse to own it. Hunter looked at her, tired. What do you want from me? I don't want anything from you, Karoline replied. I want something for the American people. Clarity, truth, accountability. And the assurance that their future isn't dictated by someone's last name. Hunter rubbed his face. You're good at this. You really are. Karoline's eyes narrowed. I don't do this to win arguments. I do it because someone has to say what millions are thinking. She turned again to the audience, her voice carrying with more weight now. This isn't about party lines anymore. It's about the line between right and wrong, and whether we're still brave enough to draw it. Applause broke out, slow at first, then building. Hunter looked around, realizing he'd lost the room. And maybe, deep down, he realized something else too. This wasn't just a takedown. It was a turning point. The applause began to fade, but the message lingered in the air like smoke after a fire. Hunter sat down slowly, his posture less defiant now, more like a man weathering the impact of a storm he didn't expect. Karoline didn't press further. She didn't need to. The damage was already done. Not by yelling, not by insults, but by truth delivered with precision and conviction. The moderator glanced at both of them, then into the camera. We've had an intense exchange tonight. Let's close with one question for each of you. Hunter, first, if you could change one thing about how your story has been told to the public, what would it be? Hunter paused. A long silence. Then, softly, that I'm not my father. A few people in the audience nodded. It was a human answer, maybe too late, but real. The moderator turned. Karoline, same question. If you could change one thing about how people see you, what would it be? She didn't hesitate. That I'm here for clicks. I'm not. I'm here for change. And I'll take the heat, the backlash, the name-calling, because someone has to challenge the illusion of fairness. Hunter looked at her, this time without scorn. You really believe that, don't you? Karoline turned to him. More than you believe you're misunderstood. Another ripple went through the audience. This wasn't just a political confrontation anymore. It was a cultural one, a clash of worlds. The entitled versus the accountable. The inherited spotlight versus the earned one. And it was clear which one the crowd was leaning toward. As the camera zoomed out for the final wide shot, Karoline and Hunter remained seated, facing each other. One defiant. One exposed. In that still frame, the contrast said more than any words could. As the moderator thanked the guests and signaled the end of the broadcast, the audience didn't immediately rise. It was as if they were still processing what they'd witnessed, not just a political showdown, but the unraveling of legacy in real time. Hunter looked down, expression tight but no longer combative. Karoline, still poised, didn't smirk, didn't gloat. Her silence said it all, the point had been made. And it didn't need repeating. As they stood, a reporter in the press pit shouted, "Karoline, do you think this changed anything?" She paused for half a beat, then turned to the cameras. "I don't know if it changed him, but I know it reminded people that no one, no matter how famous their name, is untouchable." Hunter shifted beside her but said nothing. Outside the studio, clips were already going viral. Karoline ends Hunter, one trending topic read. Another simply said, name versus earned. Screens lit up across the country as pundits scrambled to frame what just happened. Some called her brutal. Others called her necessary. But the truth? She had just pulled off something rare, cutting through noise with clarity. And Americans, no matter their side, couldn't look away. Hours later, Karoline walked out of the studio into a sea of cameras. Her staff trailed behind her, but she didn't stop to pose. She didn't need to. Every frame had already been captured where it mattered, in people's minds. She adjusted her coat, glanced up at the night sky, and walked off with the quiet confidence of someone who knew. She didn't win a debate. She reshaped the narrative. And in an America torn between privilege and principle, that was the real victory. What you just witnessed wasn't just another debate, it was a cultural collision between privilege and accountability. Karoline Leavitt didn't just confront Hunter Biden, she dismantled the illusion that a famous name equals credibility. In a world where legacy often outweighs merit, this moment reminded America that truth still matters, and that someone willing to speak it, fearlessly, can shake even the most protected foundations. If this story challenged your perspective or made you think differently about power and politics, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Because voices like this? They're just getting started. See you in the next one.